So we saw some JavaScript in action. We have the basic definition out of the way and hopefully now have a basic understanding of what JavaScript is and what this language is all about. Now, what's in this course though? What will you learn in this course? You could split this course into 3 main blocks, I would say. The core basics, which you have to know under all circumstances. Then the next block where we build up on these basics and build a really strong foundation. You could therefore still call that basics, but these would be the advanced basics. And then we have advanced concepts, which allow you to get to the next level of JavaScript development and become a really good JavaScript developer. Now, in the core basics block, we get started. This is this module. We learn the core basics about JavaScript and its history and so on. But once we're finished with this module, we'll dive into all the core syntax, the language basics, into variables, functions, what all of that is. All these core things that make up the JavaScript language, which you have to know no matter in which environment you want to execute JavaScript. We'll dive into efficient development and debugging, how to configure your environment correctly, how to fix errors and how to find them. We'll dive into control structures, if statements, loops, so that you can execute code multiple times based on some conditions. We'll look behind the scenes of JavaScript. We'll see what the JavaScript engine does in detail. We'll have a closer look at functions, a very important concept as it will turn out. We'll have a look at DOM basics. DOM stands for Document Object Model, and this will all be about manipulating the web page we're running on, adding content, removing content, and so on. We'll have a look at arrays and iterables, so at lists of data and how we can work with those. We'll have a look at objects, which are super important data structures in JavaScript. And once we're done with that, you will have a solid basic understanding of the JavaScript core syntax and the core features. Now thereafter we'll build a stronger foundation, and if you already know all the core base syntax, this of course might be a great entry point. You'll find a module in the curriculum, if you check that, about classes and object-oriented programming, which takes object usage, you learned about objects in the core basics, to the next level. You'll learn about constructor functions and prototypes, important core concepts baked into the JavaScript language. We'll dive deeper into the DOM and how to work with the browser and tap into certain browser features. We'll dive deeper into events, how we can react to mouse clicks, and so on. We'll have a look at functions again. We'll dive really deep into functions and learn about things like recursion and more advanced function usage. We'll explore the number and string types in greater detail and which restrictions we have there and what we can do there. We'll dive into asynchronous code, which will be related to that single threading I mentioned, and how we can run longer taking operations without freezing our web page. We'll dive into these background HTTP requests, also sometimes referred to as AJAX, which I mentioned earlier, which allow us to exchange data behind the scenes without reloading the page. And once we did all of that, we will have a very solid foundation, not just the basic core syntax, but we'll also know all the important parts of the JavaScript language and of using JavaScript in the browser. Now, of course, then we'll also dive into more advanced concepts. You will learn how to work with third-party libraries, how to utilize JavaScript modules and split your code efficiently across multiple files. We'll dive into tooling, which allows us to optimize our JavaScript code, namely Webpack and Babel. We'll briefly dive into browser storage and how you can store data in the browser. We'll have a look at browser support and how you can ensure that your scripts run in all browsers where they need to run, no matter which browsers your end users are going to use. We'll have a look at JavaScript frameworks, and there we'll have a look at the React.js library. We'll have a look at meta programming, how you can write code which is easier to use by other developers, really advanced but really important. We'll have a look at Node.js and see how that differs from browser-side JavaScript and what will be the same. We'll have a look at security and how you secure your code and which security holes you want to avoid. We'll of course also see how you get your code from your local machine onto a server where other users can use it. We'll have a look at performance optimizations and fixing memory leaks to ship the best possible code, and much, much more. This course is a big course. It has a lot of hours of content because it's simply packed with content. You can simply go from lecture 1 to the last lecture, or of course also dive into the modules which are most interesting to you. I did my best to build the course in a way that allows you to also use it as a reference, so that you don't always have to restart at the beginning if you are coming back to it after a year or so, but that you can dive into the sections which are most interesting to you. Though if you are new or relatively new to JavaScript, my strong recommendation is that you start with lecture 1 and section 1 and you go through the course step by step, maybe just speeding up playback if I'm going through some concepts you already know. So this is what's in the course and how you can take it.